Okay, Dr. Cook back, and we're going to be looking at part two of our AGADAP walkthrough of how we do our concept sketch. All right, as a reminder, here's the little map of our scenario and our platoon mission statement that first platoon attacks to breach an enemy minefield vicinity of phase line granite in order to allow freedom maneuver for 166 armor to move through the gap and then attack a logistics hub to the east. Now, last video we went through the first 5 steps of AGADAP. So these are just kind of shown here of our relative combat power that we've chosen to do a penetration, how we've laid out our forces, arrayed them, and set our phases and selected our leadership. Okay, so now we get our battle book page where we're going to do our COA statement and sketch, and we can drive on with our sketch.
All right, so here's the page out of the battle book. And we need to do both our sketch and our statement. Now for this, I'm going to go ahead and just start with the sketch. Now we know that we're going to start out in our assembly area. All right, so we can go ahead and draw that up here at the top of the page. And I want to leave quite a bit of room down here to show what's going to happen for actions on the objective. Remember, the COA sketch isn't to scale. But we're going to need some kind of line of departure. We know that's going to happen. All right, and we're going to leave from the assembly area, and we're going to move to an ORP. Right? So we got to put our ORP on here. And since that's going to be a movement, there's going to be an axis to get us there. All right. And thinking through this, there's probably some phase line here, right? Because we're going to spend phase 1 in the assembly area, phase 2 moving to the ORP, and then phase 3 is all going to happen in the ORP. So there's probably a phase line here because we're going to act differently at that point. Now, from this, just thinking about my mission, I'm going to come down here and kind of do actions on the objective. Now, usually we don't want to show terrain on the COA sketch, right? So I'm not worried about, is this route actually straight, or what hills or streams might be here. But it's not a hard rule that you can't. You should include if there's any key kinds of terrain that are important to showing the COA sketch and making it make sense. So if there was a bridge and it was an important thing that you're dealing with, you might want to show that. But if it's just you're crossing a bridge as part of your movement, you probably don't. So in this case, I do have, I want to show that we've got this minefield because that's important. All right, and I think for this mission, if we come over here and look at our map, right? So we've got our minefield. The fact that there's enemy on this ridge out here, and enemy up on this spur over here, I think that is important, right? That they're up on those hilltops, and that this minefield is in a gap between these two hills. So I am going to go ahead and show. It doesn't need to be perfect. I just want to give the impression that, hey, there is these ridges here that are separating the gap for this minefield. Okay, because that is important to what we're doing in this case. So we've got our operation here. Now I'm going to want to think about what are my tasks to subordinate units, right? So I know that I've got one of my units is going to be conducting a breach operation on the minefield. So I've got a tactical task symbol for breach that has to go there. And I can bring in my map and think about what we're doing. So this enemy over on the north, we said that we were going to be trying to suppress them to keep them from interfering. So I'm going to go ahead and add that suppression symbol, tactical task, right there. We said the anti-tank team on the south ridge that we were going to be trying to destroy them. Remember, that's solid lines on the destroy and dashed lines on the suppress. All right. And then I know that there's this screen line out over here, and we're going to be sending a force to try and fix them so that they don't come up and interfere with us. So I got to get my fixing tactical task, and I need to show kind of where that happens. So here's all my breach operation. And I understand as I come from the ORP, the breach is in the middle, and I've got the suppress and the destroy on each side. But I got to show the fix somewhere over here. So I can just turn the page and give my fix symbol where that's going to happen. All right, so I've got my tactical tasks on here. Now I got to think about how do I get from the ORP out to these positions, right? And how do I want to do that? Now, I'm probably going to have this fixing force because it's just so far out there, right? And this is a small map, so here's a 100-meter scale. This is only a couple hundred meters to this hill, right? Like this isn't our assembly area is way off this map. This is zoomed in on the objective. So our fixing force is probably going to have to move around somewhere separate from the 3 elements that are going to attack the breach itself. I'm probably going to send them. I'm going to plan to send them out of the ORP. So I want to show that they're going to have to leave the ORP and swing wide on this side to get to their location. All right, so go ahead and show that. So now we understand one team is going to move, well, it's a squad, but one element is going to move all the way around to do this fixing operation. Now, then I think about what I want to do with these. Now, I don't have a support by fire task, or we're not seizing terrain where I've got a support element and then a moving assault element. We've just got 3 tasks that go on with this. And I think what I want to do is have them probably all initiate out of the same attack position. So our ORP, we're going to occupy that. We're going to set up a perimeter. We're going to be there a while as we do some other things. When we're ready, we're going to move up into our assault position, which is our last covered and concealed position before we initiate the attack. And just looking at this map, that's probably somewhere maybe behind this hill or in this wood line here. If I start to come out much further, I can't go out in the middle of the open. They'll see us and we're in range, right? But if we just kind of get up behind this hill, we're kind of just out of rifle range at least, protected by the hill. Maybe we can sneak ourselves into the wood line and make movement out of there. But all 3 elements are probably coming out of that same assault position. All right, so I need to show my assault position, ASLT, and it probably needs some kind of name to it. Maybe we'll give it a name. I don't know. So we show our assault position, assembly area, ORP, and then to the assault position. So I can just go ahead and show that movement into the assault position. All right. And then from there, we understand that assault position is going to move out to these. We don't really need to show a route because it's just a big open clearing. Squad leaders will choose how to, maybe move through the wood line here, how we want to set up our suppressive fire. Probably be right off that hill, but this is where we're going to go for those. All right, so I've got some idea of what the plan is here. Now I got to think about some other things. So we start phase 1 in the assembly area. We cross our LD phase line. Here's phase 2 movement. Cross the phase line into the ORP for phase 3. What's going on in phase 3? Well, we also have to do some kind of leader's recon. Now I need to understand, am I going to the left or am I going to the right? Or something like that for my leader's recon. I don't need an actual map, but I should think about it. Now, maybe I'm going to, if I come on the south side here, if we're approaching from the west, if I come on the south, there's a lot of wood lines here. It looks like the other hills if I look at the larger map. And, it's probably, it might have good cover and concealment, but I'm not going to be able to see very well. But with this big open area, if I can either get just on the back side of this hill and get up to the military crest, I could see this entire objective. Or maybe there's, on the larger map, there's some hilltops over here, some other terrain, and this is a wide open view. So I can be at distance, if I come out here, I can be at distance seeing into all this entire area where all three of my main elements are going to go. All right, I'm not going to be able to get into this screen line. So it's probably somewhere on this side of the map, right? So over on the north side here. So I'm going to say that we're going to have to kick out into an observation post, and there's going to be some kind of route that I'll find on the larger map that will get me there. All right. Now when we move into the assault position, all of this is going to be phase 4 actions on the objective, and I probably need to define a phase line. All right. So we should put a phase line there. Okay. And part of developing these phase lines is I'm going to give my soldiers not just that we're going to be in a certain phase, and that helps us know when we cross, but there's going to be different criteria, maybe different rules of engagement, different weapon statuses as we move through this. And part of it is, as we're doing this recon, as we're getting our things ready in the ORP, scouting out routes, I might tell my soldiers, hey, nobody goes forward of this phase line until we initiate the attack. Or nobody, once you go forward to this phase line, you must be in, tactical formations, minimum squad size elements, and you got to have, weapons in red status, or however we've labeled those statuses, ready to go. And in this area, we can do things like eat chow and, have a buddy guard your weapon while you go to the bathroom and things like that, right? And then back here is kind of administrative movement, right? So we're moving, but anything past this phase line is going to be straight up tactical maneuver, right? So that's why we're using some phase lines to develop this. All right, so we've done that much. Now our last thing is where's our LOA, right? Now we don't want to take out the enemy on these hills and get the breach open and just keep charging past, right? Because that's not our job. That's someone else's job. So we're going to have some kind of limit of advance right behind, right behind this. And on the actual map, we'll figure out where it is, LOA. Now, on a lot of situations, if this is just some kind of objective, I can just put an LOA and it just goes all the way across. But I've got a problem here. So if I'm thinking about the real map and I want my LOA, on these three elements, hey, open the breach and kind of stop there, right? We're not pushing deep. But I've got another element that I've swung around to deal with wherever this screen line is. I don't want them pushing out into this clearing, because then they potentially become a fratricide risk from here. I want them to fix this element there, but they need to stay over here somewhere. So there's probably a dog-legged LOA, because they need a limit of advance also. Remember that fix is an enemy-oriented tactical symbol that goes where the fixing occurs on the enemy, not where the friendly unit is. So I can go ahead and just show that I've got an LOA that kind of cuts across here, right? So I'm going to show that LOA. Not really doctrinal, but I might go ahead and label this point just so I understand that these are LOAs. So I got an LOA on the maneuver element that's doing the fixing. I've got an LOA on my three main assault elements here. All right. So that pretty much finishes my sketch, except I gotta fill in some details here. So, our assembly area was probably already named. I don't know what it was named. Maybe this was assembly area black, right? They already told us that. And then I got to think about my phase lines. So maybe. And you can name them however you want, but I might just call this phase line red, phase line white. All right, white, red. And assault positions are usually named, so let's just go ahead and call that assault position blue, right? So we start out in black, it's our assembly area, and then we're going to we're going to cross red, we're going to cross white, we're going to be in position on blue, and we've got an LOA. Okay, Now, if we were doing some kind of seizure where we had support by fire and element moving across, we have to think about phase lines that just went on the objective. In this case, we're all kind of going the same direction except this fixing element. So fratricide-wise, you know, I don't have to worry about phase lines, you know, controlling movement. We're all kind of going the same direction. On the scheme maneuver overlays, I'll show TRPs to try and control their sectors of fire. It's really just this element over here that we need to be worried about. But if I've given them an LOA not to move past, that'll keep them out of here. And on the actual map, I can think about target reference points and other control measures to prevent their fratricide. But as long as they stay behind their limit of advance, we think we can work with that. All right, so that completes the sketch.
Ugh. All right, so after I put this all together, I realized I made a mistake and I left something out of the COA sketch. All right, you got to show the objective, right? So we've got the assembly area, the ORP, any assault positions, support by fire positions, things like that. And then the objective itself that you're trying to hit needs to be on there. So when you talk about it, people know what it is, all right? So here, it shouldn't be in red. It should be, you know, in pencil like the rest of this, but I highlighted it in red just so you could see that the correction's there. It should have an objective and show that those items are on our objective. All right, now you can go check out part 3 and we'll walk through how I write out the concept statement.